Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. It is Ella here, and today we have another great humanitarian here to share his story with us. Mr. Bisong, thank you so much for joining us today to share the story of the amazing work you're doing with your foundation. So, let us meet you. Who is Mr. Bisong? What does he do? And yeah, from there we'll move on to talk about your nonprofit and the amazing work that you're doing.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are watching this, thank you so much, Ella, for having me. My name is Busaosowo Bisong. I am a practicing lawyer and a youth activist, and I also double as the executive director and founder of Busaosowo Foundation. I live in Nigeria, Enugu State to be precise, and I believe in doing my best to ensure that our nation and our continent gets better year after year.
Wonderful. All the way from Enugu, Nigeria. How is Enugu today? I hope it's not raining because I know that area is usually rainy.
Yes, it did rain. Unfortunately, we have not been having enough rain, but yesterday, all of a sudden, we started seeing drops of rain, and towards midnight, it came down so heavily. So,
Wonderful.
yeah, we're hoping that the season of having to deal with heat is over.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's get straight into what we have to talk about today. So, can you tell us about where it all began? What was the inspiration behind starting a foundation for youth and trying to solve the issue of drug abuse in Nigeria?
Well, my story is quite a unique one, and I will explain why I say that. From a young age,
Mhm.
I have always known somehow, not that I'm saying I've always known because of how much I've grown now, but I'd always had this mindset that I was able to cause change.
Mm.
And so throughout from secondary school down to the university, I always see myself in the midst of not just young people, but also trying to be at the forefront when it comes to conversations
Mm.
surrounding young persons.
Mm.
So it was in SS2. We had this meeting in my school. We usually have visitors. Sometimes there will be foreigners, sometimes there will be Nigerians who will just come to the school. And quite fortunately, it was a public school, not as if it was
Wow.
a, uh, a private
Private
school.
school.
So this professor from the US came and began just to ask us how do we see ourselves in a couple of years. So and I think I answered that I see myself being a professor and leading social change.
Wonderful.
So my desire for social change dates back to my days
Mm.
in secondary school.
Mm.
And so I've kept that in my mind. And
Mm.
so I entered into the university. I also kept thinking of what I could do. I think in my second or third year, it was clear to me that I would have to run a non-profit organization. So in my third year, I had my third year, my fourth year were the what will I say, the idea birthing stage.
Mm.
So the name, the aims, the objective, the things that we're going to do was all set. And within those 2 years, I set a timeline that I will start my nonprofit organization once I go for NYS.
Mm.
So in 2017, I was sent to Kebbi State, and I think that was around October or November of that year. So, but I had to return back to my hometown and then back to Abuja for my call to back. And when I came back in 2018 January, we started Busaosowo Foundation in February of 2018.
Wonderful. So from SS2, as early as SS2, that's really, really great. Like you carried on the vision, the passion until it became a full-blown flower and now a tree. Wonderful. So what exactly do you do at the foundation and what's the focus with the foundation?
Okay. I also didn't mention that I growing up, I looked forward to not just being successful, but
Mm,
helping young people succeed. It
mm,
was a
mm,
natural thing.
mm.
So from JS3, I remember one certain time I went to JS1, and if I could stand up completely, you'll see my height. So if you take a couple of years from from how old I am, you could not imagine.
Yeah.
I was ridiculously small. And so, but I still took the boldness of going to classes and just talking to other young people because at that
Mm,
time we had the issues of
mm,
sagging,
mm,
cultism that
mm-hmm.
were just in sprinkles, not as they are now. And
Yeah.
so for us at the Busaosowo Foundation, at the root of everything, not just some things, at the root of everything that we do is young people.
Mm,
And so our focal point here is youth, families, and national development. Now, these three focal points that we have, the youth are the center point. So when we are talking to families, when we are carrying out project initiatives that will affect families, we're not just doing that because we want to reach out to families. We're doing that because our main focus is young people. When we talk about national development, we're not just talking about the need for nations to grow. What we're
mm,
talking about is how we can develop young people so that their development will now translate to national development. So young people is at the focus of what we do. Here at the Social Foundation, we say that we identify the problems affecting young people, families, and national development, and then provide solutions
mm,
to them. And just so that we would have certain boundaries that we can work on. Because if you set out as a non-profit leader to begin to do everything, you may end up
sure.
not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we say, well, what are the basic challenges affecting young people that if we put our hands into, we'll be able to cut across all of our aims and objectives at the foundation. And so we came down to four. First was drug abuse prevention
Mm,
among young people. The second thematic area here is increased access to education for rural children. And the third is disability rights advocacy and then youth empowerment as the fourth. Now, as we carry out projects in each of these areas, we place young people at the center and we are sure that whatever project or initiative that we carry out, the main benefiting class of people is always young people.
mm, wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk about drug abuse and the work that you do in that area. I know that in the slums and young people, let's not even say the slums, young people generally have an issue with drug use and all of that. So tell us about the work so far, especially in terms of curbing and reducing the rate of drug use within the youth in the work that you've done so far.
All right. Let me start with why drug abuse
Mm,
in the first place and why young people.
mm-hmm,
And you know, for us as a nation, the challenge with drug abuse dates back over 50 to 70
mm-hmm,
years ago,
yeah,
where our soldiers went for war, and when they came back with souvenirs, and those souvenirs unfortunately happened to be marijuana. And so
yeah,
that was like the first introduction of
mm,
substance abuse into Nigeria. But for us here at the Social Foundation, especially within the framework that we work in, we have seen drug abuse literally change the lives of young people for the worse.
mm,
Now, I think I've had the opportunity to share my story just about once. So this will be the second time I will be telling people why I'm actually pushing forward on drug abuse
mm,
prevention among young people. I stated earlier that in 2017, I was sent for my NYC, and that's when I became a lawyer.
mm-hmm,
So in 2018, I was fully into practice as a youth corps member. So one day I went to court in Kebbi State. And so I was sitting down for my case to be called up, and a criminal case was called up. And so the accused person was brought into court. And that guy, let me call him a guy, looked as young as I was. And so this was me, well kitted, in a suit, paid for wearing a suit and sitting down in the courtroom. And here is another young person at the other side of the world. He was brought in court and he was sentenced to prison for being in possession of marijuana and using marijuana. He had stayed in prison for a couple of months before they
You
actually
him.
brought him to court, and thereafter he was sentenced. And so I sat down there that morning and looked at my life, and I was looking at that young person. I said, this could be me, but just look at what drug abuse has done to this young person. So I left that place and I said, um, do we just continue putting blame and say, okay, this guy is not serious, he's a bad boy, spoiled child, he's the Judas of the family, and all of that. And so I said, what can we do to ensure that this does not repeat itself? Because after that time, I didn't have the resources to say, okay, let's start rehabilitating people who were into drug abuse. And so we came to the conclusion as a team that we're going to focus on drug abuse prevention. Although after the time that we decided to take this decision, the focus, or let me say the strongest reason we had was that we didn't have all of the resources to begin treating people who were already addicted to drug abuse. But after 3 years or 4 years that we have done that, we have seen how effective drug abuse prevention has been. And so for us, we are working to ensure that people, especially young people, don't experiment with drugs. Because when you cut them from experimenting with drugs, we don't have the trouble of having to talk about treatment, we don't have the trouble of having to talk about rehabilitation. Because all of the other consequences that come with drug abuse. So our work focuses mostly on drug abuse prevention. Now, and what do we do with drug abuse prevention? We look at, to be able to prevent something from happening or to stop something from happening, you need to first of all understand why is this happening? Why is it happening? And the second thing you need to do is that if you want to stop it, who can you bring on board to ensure that this thing stops? And so we focus basically on tackling the issues, the risk factors that push young people into drug abuse, and empower them with the skills that they need to be able to address those situations without having to turn to drug abuse.
Wonderful. So identifying the problem is essential, very, very important. So let's move over to the other aspect of the work that you do, which is disability awareness and advocating for people living with disabilities. So what initiatives or what solutions have you put together for this specific group of people within your organization?
Now, for us as an organization, forgive me, I always repeat the phrase for us. For us as an organization, we feel that it is important to always understand the problem that you are dealing with. It is the first step to success. And so when we looked at the issues surrounding disability, we had to first of all understand from our immediate environment what is the situation, what is causing the situation. And so when we started our work, we were in Kebbi State, here in Nigeria, the northern part of our nation. And we saw that the issue of disability is almost synonymous to street begging. And so you go to state and you find people who are on the street are people living with disability. Remember, I said earlier that we always try to tie back whatever projects and initiatives that we do back to young people. And so we saw that what was obvious and what was pronounced in the community that we were in was street begging for either young people or adults who were living with disability. And we had to streamline our solutions to two important things. The first was to begin to work on the community to see that disability is not a death sentence. And two is that we also had to begin to work with young people who were living with disability so that they will be able to build a self-dependence, so to say. And so we launched Project DAP in 2018, and that was the disabled are people too. Although in recent times we have had to try to rename that project again, but we had just one singular objective: get people to see, both people who are living with disability and the community, that there is nothing wrong with the person who is living with disability. And so when we launched this project, we had to go straight to our main focus, the young people. Fortunately for us in Kebbi State, there was a school that was specially designed for young people living with disability. And so we launched into that school, and we launched a career personal development project that ran for 6 months, helping these young people, first of all, believe in themselves, teaching them skills and ensuring that they are able to integrate into the society. The second thing we did was to, in order to get the society aware of the challenges that are associated with disability, and also get them to open up their arms to people living with disability, we started the Project DAP Table Talk. The DAP, like I explained, means disabled and people too. And so we did that for six months where on television. And fortunately, that was my first time going on air on television. I was actually asked to produce the TV show. That was what the general manager told me. So go ahead, draft out what you want to do, and come back, and we'll give you the slot. And so that was what we did. So we focused that TV show aired for 6 months, and we focused on dealing with the issues that were confronting people living with disability in the state, and what the society can do to ensure that that the scenario is better. And so also outside of that, other things that we have done around disability but advocacy is to actually deal with the issues concerning learning disability. Permit me to say that here in Nigeria, when it comes to learning disability, the level of knowledge that both parents and teachers have is almost zero. And I would share an example. Recently, I moved from where I'm currently is. I had a case outside the state, so I was traveling, and so in this bus there was obviously a grandmother with a grandchild. Because of my knowledge, when I looked at the way the child was behaving, I knew that that child was autistic. So, but when he wanted to urinate as we were moving, and so one of the things that you would notice with children, when they feel any form of discomfort, they begin to agitate. And so he was aggressive and was shouting. So the driver had to stop. The grandmother came down and escorted him to find a place to eat himself. While we were waiting for them to come back, another woman turned to somebody else and told her in the local parlance in Nigeria that his head is not correct. So they interpreted that child's behavior to be madness. Yes, mental issues. Meanwhile, that child was autistic. And many parents have concluded that their children are either possessed, they are imbeciles, or just that. But what is actually happening is that this child has a learning disability and attention disability. And so what we are doing is that we are trying to put all of this information out there to say a child who does not know or who does not find it easy understanding numbers is not a dull child. That child may have a
Lexia.
learning or a language mistake. And
Mhm.
when we were growing up, I don't know if it ever happened to you, if you schooled in Nigeria, you will know that there were people we normally call those people who don't like book. In my native language, they will
Yes,
say
true.
heads that don't like book.
Mm.
Meanwhile, those people,
They
most
may
of
have
them,
had an underlying issue that
exactly,
nobody paid
and
attention to.
nobody.
Mm.
So we have all kinds of learning disabilities that if parents have just enough information, they will help their children do better.
You are right. You are really right. In Nigeria, even I think it's even in the whole of Africa, because when I
Yeah,
went,
it's an African problem
yeah,
too.
when I went to Kenya, I saw a special school and I was asking about, people who have dyslexia and all of that, how they help them, and they said a lot of them could not give enough information about it, and it really boils down to how our culture reacts to some of these things. And it's really true. You're right. Some of these people that we call dumb or we call not book smart, they are smart in some other aspects, but when it
Yeah,
comes to book, because of their learning disorder, they are not able to do that. You're very right. Okay, so let's.
and also it
Yeah.
those disabilities,
Mm.
which I would call difficulties, they are not things that can change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are not things that can change. Or when a person has a learning disability or a language disability, all the person has is that when compared to other people, the speed, the cohesion in which
It cannot
that child
measure up.
reacts is not hard. So I was saying that if parents have enough information, they
Mm-hmm.
can be able to identify the signs and they
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what to do to help that child. And even though here in Nigeria we have little or no facilities to
Mm.
for special needs children, but there are things that parents can do. For instance, that child who is autistic, it is a function of helping that child be able to learn bit by bit how
Mm.
to exercise self-control. All of these things are possible
Mm-hmm.
with hard work and accurate information. And so
Mm.
that's what we're trying to bridge the knowledge gap
Mm.
in that regard also.
Wonderful, wonderful. So when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned that you're a practicing lawyer. You also said some other things about what you do. Now, I understand from my experience and knowing you for a while, I know you have so many passions. In a way, you do some sort of journalism, you do the blogging with your foundation, you are how are you able to manage all of these, and what are these different expressions or passions that you have?
Okay, so let me where do I start from?
Start from the passion
Okay, so
and then how
let's
you are
begin
able to manage it.
okay, so somehow I have noticed that I have multiple interests. But the beautiful thing about I do, somehow they tend to be very interrelated.
Mm.
And so I'm practicing law. I have interest in media. As a matter of fact, where I left to come to this place, my local church, we are launching a media outlet. And
Wonderful.
um fortunately for me, I'm doubling as the creative director. And so we're trying to set up our stage to begin production in a few months. I also write, and about 2 books are on the way, hoping to be published maybe in the next 18 months. So, but because all of these things are interrelated, and one of the things I decided to do because of the multiple interests I had was that I came to a conclusion that it will be difficult to be under employment.
Mm.
Now, I don't know how, let me put this in perspective. I'm self-employed, so I have my own law firm with a friend, and the major reason why I decided to do that was that as a lawyer, it would be impossible for me to be under the employment of um, a law firm and be able to do what I'm doing. For instance, there will be no harm that by now I'll be in the house, or I'll have the courage to leave what I'm doing and come over. And so one of the things that I needed to do was to clearly define what I wanted. And one of those things I came to the conclusion that if I have these multiple interests and I have to do them, time was of the essence. So I had to do things that will ensure that I'm in control of my time. So let me say that what I felt is the fact that I'm in control of my time. And so the nature of my practice allows me to um not to always frequent the court. There are months that you're always in court, but somehow I have found a way to appear less in court and be able to work out from. Then two is the fact that I have built established, so to say, effective relationships. Now, this is very important for any young person to begin to do as young as possible, not as early, now as young as possible. Because if you don't do that, you will literally put yourself into a very unfortunate condition. And so when it gets too much, there is always someone to call and say, okay, this is it. Can you help me do that? And thirdly is the fact that I don't allow myself to be pressured into accepting responsibility. As a matter of fact, last year I came to the conclusion that any other assignment apart from the ones that I'm handling that they are not thinking about it to tell you, let me go and think about it. As I'm telling you, I'm saying no. So those are the things that have helped me to be able to mix do all I do, and sometimes I have to sacrifice sleep, but all of the what will I carry over that I have or sleep, I've paid them all. The last 2 weeks have been very exciting, so I've paid all of my sleep debt, so I'm free to move on.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the fact that you mentioned you've learned to say no. That saying no is very important. That saying no is
Yes.
very, very important. Very important. So, just one more question before I let you go. Um, what are the challenges, the major challenges you face running such an organization, trying to help young people in Nigeria?
Okay. I think that um when I started, I was in a community that was the exact opposite of how I have seen life in terms of faith, in terms of culture, in terms of belief. And so it was a struggle for acceptance. But um because you have an idea and you want to provide solutions to problems that the community knows that it's no matter how resistant that community is, because you truly have a solution. Somehow, there will be an opening. So that was the first issue, and the first challenge that I had. Funding has been a challenge, and even though I don't like to agree, it is it's a challenge because having spoken to non-profit leaders over and over again, we keep on saying funding.
Everyone has that issue.
Everything is saying fund, and that's the truth. But in the midst of this, I've not seen any non-profit organization that say I will stop doing this work. No money. Somehow we keep on finding ways. And so the issue of acceptance, um funding has been a challenge. Then and at a point in the work that we do, I actually began to ask myself if we are actually creating the desired impact that we have. Now, this let me put that in perspective. As a drug abuse prevention advocate, as a non-profit leader, you want to be able to see not just change, but you want to be able to see change that is measurable.
Yeah.
And that has been an issue for us, especially for us who are in the advocacy space.
Mm-hmm.
But 2022 happened to be a very good year that we're able to see traces of how sustainable our work is is becoming. And so now we have uh, more faith, more courage to keep pushing and keep pushing well. And let me also say this: thinking over the years, I've also seen that to one of the challenges that I experienced or I've had was the fact that at the beginning we appeared to be um, widening our scope. But I've come to see that if you truly want to see the impact that you are making, it has to be within a limited space. And so now we decided we now work with communities. Just go there and come back. That's how I was telling you that 2022 has been a very wonderful year. We had to streamline all of our works to two communities and focus. Imagine focusing on two communities for a whole year. You give us the opportunity to see the changes that we have been waiting for. So if there will be any advice, even though you have not asked me, if there will be any advice I want to give to anybody who is thinking of coming into the non-profit, please streamline your impact. It will give you joy. Instead of wanting to reach 20 schools in a year, can you form an alliance with these schools? Let them give, if you test your idea. There is a boldness that comes with testing your idea, seeing the result, and before you're able to expand. Let me stop there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That is a tip already. So in 1 minute, are there any programs or special events that you need the support of the public on? It's time to make your call in 1 minute.
Okay. Yes. Let me also say that in 2022 we decided that all of our works, because like I said, we want to, we have been streamlining and ensuring that we're able to build enough capacity in drug abuse prevention. And so we took one of the, well, I say, boldest steps. Just give me a minute, let me get something and show our audience. So for the first time, in our opinion, our foundation was able to publish the drug abuse prevention trainers booklet. In our opinion, this is the first local content guide on drug abuse prevention in Nigeria. And well, we are hoping that we will be able to transcribe this into 5 languages. We're already on our way. It's the first language, Swahili, will be out maybe in about 3 months. We'll be able to have this in Swahili for countries like Uganda and Kenya. And so we are hoping that we will be able to raise $2,000 to be able to do that. Also, we decided that in order to help parents get involved in drug abuse prevention, we are launching an online course. It's just 5 modules where we will be teaching and empowering parents to be able to carry out drug abuse prevention efforts at home. That also is in the pipeline. We hope that by the end of maybe June or August, we would have that course floating online. And so all of these things, we're hoping that we get as much support as we can get. Already we have started and with the little resources that we have internally.
Wonderful. So guys, you have heard it as usual. Please feel free to support, feel free to donate. The contact details are on your screen. They are also in the description box. Please also share, because you don't know who might be interested in supporting the work that they do at the foundation. So Mr. Bisong, thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. It was an amazing time having you, and looking forward to doing so much more with you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone, please do not forget to share, like, drop a comment, and let us know how this episode went for you. See you in the next episode.
Bye.